Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events shaping our world. I'm your host, Walter. Today, we're taking a closer look at the ongoing saga surrounding President Trump's demands to acquire Greenland. The story has been making headlines for days, with the president attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where he reiterated his interest in purchasing the autonomous Danish territory. According to reports, Trump threatened to impose tariffs on European allies if they resisted his bid to acquire Greenland. However, after reaching a tentative deal with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, the president appears to have backed down on those threats. The details of the plan are still unclear, but it's been reported that the agreement includes concepts for a future deal regarding Greenland. The news has sparked a mix of reactions, with some critics accusing the president of overstepping his bounds and others praising his efforts to expand American influence. The Daily Show's Josh Johnson weighed in on the issue, saying that Europe's response to Trump's demands could be a lesson for the rest of us. Johnson suggested that simply saying no to the president might be an effective way to counter his aggressive negotiating style. Stock markets have also been affected by the developments, with the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq rising after Trump called off his tariff threats. The Danish pension fund, Akademiker Pension, has announced plans to sell $100 million in U.S. Treasury bonds, while the Greenland CISA pension is considering divesting U.S. stocks. As the situation continues to unfold, we'll be keeping a close eye on any new developments. We'll also be exploring other top stories from around the world, including the latest from the worlds of politics, business, and entertainment. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the latest developments in international relations as a potential crisis over Greenland seems to be easing. U.S. President Donald Trump has dropped his threat to impose tariffs on European countries that opposed his plans to acquire the Danish territory. This move has been welcomed by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who described it as a pragmatic and common-sense step. The situation had been escalating, with Trump threatening to use tariffs as leverage to seize control of Greenland. However, in a surprising turn of events, he stepped back from this threat and suggested that a deal is in sight to end the dispute. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has announced that a framework deal on Greenland has been agreed upon, which will require NATO allies to step up their efforts on Arctic security. The UK's Prime Minister Starmer has acknowledged that there will be hard yards ahead to address security concerns in the Arctic, but he seems optimistic about finding a way forward. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, has also expressed appreciation for the UK's support during this time, highlighting the strong alliance between the two countries. As the situation continues to unfold, it's clear that international cooperation and diplomacy will be crucial in resolving the issues surrounding Greenland. We'll be keeping a close eye on developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. Welcome back to Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's show, let's dive into a complex and developing story that has significant implications for global politics. The Trump administration has been working to establish a board of peace aimed at resolving conflicts around the world, with a particular focus on the Gaza ceasefire. This initiative has sparked both interest and concern among various nations. The idea for the Board of Peace originated from a 20-point Gaza ceasefire plan, which was endorsed by the United Nations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has agreed to join, despite initial criticism from his office regarding the board's committee tasked with overseeing Gaza. However, other countries such as Russia, Norway, Sweden, France, Canada, Ukraine, China, and the European Union have not committed to participating, citing various reasons including concerns about the board's potential to replace the UN as the primary venue for conflict resolution. Russian President Vladimir Putin is still consulting with his strategic partners before making a decision, while British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper expressed concerns about Putin's involvement in a peace initiative given the ongoing situation in Ukraine. The Kremlin has proposed sending $1 billion to the Board of Peace for humanitarian purposes, but this would require U.S. action to unblock the assets. The situation in Gaza remains dire, with over 2 million Palestinians facing a humanitarian crisis after more than 2 years of war. The disarmament of Hamas is seen as crucial to maintaining the ceasefire, but the group has refused to do so. Trump has warned of dire consequences if Hamas does not comply and has claimed that the war in Gaza is really coming to an end. In related news, Trump recently threatened military action against Iran following a violent crackdown on protests, which resulted in thousands of deaths. However, he has since signaled that he won't carry out new strikes after receiving assurances that the planned hangings of over 800 protesters would not take place. Trump also met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss the ongoing conflict with Russia, but no major breakthroughs were announced. The Republican president has struggled to get Zelensky and Putin to agree on terms to end their nearly 4-year-old war. As this story continues to unfold, it's essential to consider the complex web of international relationships and interests at play. The establishment of the Board of Peace has the potential to impact global conflict resolution, but its success will depend on the cooperation and commitment of various nations. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.